So welcome to Across Global TV. My name is Stephen Bukvic, and I'm the chairman of the Executive Committee of the Across Global Alliance. Today, we also have in our studio Olesia Liubchenko, Business Development Manager for Across Global Alliance. And in India, we have Kishore Kumar from Consul X, one of Across's many specialist service providers.
Hello.
Hello.
Today, we're going to discuss the topic of decentralized clinical trials. Decentralized clinical trials, abbreviated to DCT, is one of the hottest topics in clinical research right now. Decentralized clinical trials are also often referred to as virtual, home, remote, or even siteless trials. One such goal of decentralized clinical trials is to make clinical trials easier for patients by reducing or eliminating the need to travel to specific sites. Decentralized clinical trials also open the door for the introduction of the eConsent process. But before we delve into the emergence of eConsent as a new standard of consenting in clinical trials, let's quickly look at informed consent as the foundation of the consenting process. ICH GCP E6, section 1.28, defines informed consent as a process by which a subject voluntarily confirms his or her willingness to participate in a particular trial, after having been informed of all aspects of that trial that are relevant to the subject's decision to participate. Informed consent is documented by means of written, signed, and dated informed consent form. Importantly, informed consent is a process. It's more than simply putting a signature on an informed consent form. However, the signatures of the person taking informed consent, the patient's signature, as well as in some circumstances, the signatures of an impartial witness or a legal acceptable representative, are a critical part of the informed consent process. The world is changing, and whilst ICH GCP E6 clearly states informed consent is documented by means of a written, signed and dated informed consent form, how is signing and dating being interpreted in today's rapidly evolving digital world? Let's take a closer look. Transcelerate is a non-profit organization with collaboration across biopharmaceutical companies to identify, prioritize design, and facilitate implementation of solutions designed to drive the efficient, effective, and high-quality delivery of new medicines. One of Transcelerate's more recent key initiatives is the eConsent initiative, which aims to create a common approach for the electronic consenting of patients, using an array of digital elements and process efficiencies to increase insight into patients' understanding, increase regulatory compliance, and reduce quality risks. Further information is available on the Transcelerate website.
There has been a rapid move towards digitalization of clinical trials, which has clearly been accelerated by the current COVID-19 pandemic. More remote activities are now being conducted by sponsors and CROs, which combined with difficulties for some patients and other parties to access hospitals and clinics due to COVID-19 restriction, have changed the landscape of clinical trial conduct. How has this scenario impacted the informed consent process in clinical trials? One such company with significant experience in eConsenting patients is Across Global's partner in India, Consul X. Welcome to the program, Kishore.
Thank you, Olesia.
As Stephen has mentioned, eConsent is now an integral part of the ongoing migration towards decentralized clinical trials. Kishore, can you share more about this transition to decentralized clinical trials?
Yes, sure. Decentralized trials were gaining traction before the pandemic. However, COVID pandemic accelerated this adoption as an urgent response. The pandemic drove 45% of clinical trial sites to transition from in-person visits to remote visits using virtual technologies and components. New patient enrollment declined by 79% in the 12-month period. We are aware of all these factors and hence the need what we are discussing today. The need for rapid response during the pandemic paved way for strategy changes, it paved way for alternate technology to come in, and it also enabled a wide methodology choices and acceptance from regulators for the next generation of clinical trials. The component which picked up first was consenting. As researchers, all of us want to ensure that potential study participant understands the study, understands the risk and benefits involved in participation, comprehends the study requirements well, and hence he or she agrees to participate in the study and in turn tends to be more compliant to the protocol specific requirements. Right? The question in front of us is, does the traditional paper-based consent model fulfill this objective? Over the past few years, Olesia, we are getting an answer which is certainly not across various industry and regulatory bodies and stakeholders. Right? Hence, the digital consenting has been explored and has been in use for quite some time now, and there has been clear benefits demonstrated through the participants and efficiency gains through the sponsors and CROs.
Thank you, Kishore. Moving on, can you please share your thoughts about eConsent patients in clinical trials? How will eConsent improve the process for patients and sponsors, companies alike?
Olesia, ideally what we want is to give patients as much time as possible to consider participation by asking the right questions about the study, by asking the right information about the trial participation, and take this information back to their support teams at home, consult with them, and then make a conscious decision to participate in the clinical trial. Further, conveying this huge quantity of information in a way that is easily consumed and understood remains a challenge with paper-based consenting process. The information sheet and the consent form usually is about 15 to 20 pages of densely typed material. Right? From patient point of view, eConsent provides them an opportunity to understand and learn information using a variety of interactive multimedia-based methods. This in turn increases comprehension. Better comprehension reduces the risk of dropouts due to lack of understanding of what they are originally consenting to. From a sponsor's point of view, eConsent offers solutions to current issues with the paper-based consenting process, ensuring clear signatures, date and time stamping of various activities involved in the consenting process. Have we used the correct version of documents at the right time? All these things are the usual challenges which are associated with any clinical trial process and impacts the conduct in a big way. eConsent solutions simplify the consent and also the reconsenting process throughout the study conduct, and they do an effective document and workflow management, ensuring effective version control, providing the correct and most up-to-date IRB approved documents are available to the participants in a clinical trial poses a lot of challenges no matter how methodical we are in and organized we are in conducting these processes. Hence, eConsent offers them a best possible solution to offset these challenges, which are very, very important.
Thank you. So, Kishore, What are some of the challenges facing the transition to eConsent?
Alicia, as Steve mentioned earlier, and as we spoke earlier, e-consent is not an innovation in the recent past. Right? It has been there for quite some time. The global pandemic accelerated the use and adoption of e-consent. Right? What it does, it transforms the traditional paper consent by bringing additional value to the sponsor and to the investigator, as well as exceptional benefits to the participants. Right? It also supports the ethical mandates which are most important for clinical research. It is vital to ensure that the regulatory authorities around the world set out clear guidance on the regulations surrounding the use of e-consent in clinical trials and how they are performed in their respective countries. This aim needs to become the priority now for regulatory bodies to ensure that trials running in their nations can implement e-consent and hence eliminate many inspection findings that arise due to non-compliance of informed consent process. And this should be a priority now, in my opinion.
Very good. Kishore, you mentioned ethics committees a few moments ago. Especially, how are IRBs, IECs reacting to this change?
We have some first-hand information on this, Olesia, which I would like to speak about here. So, as an e-consent service provider, we support the sponsor in many ways when the sponsor and the sites go to IRBs and ethics committees for approval. Right? We support them with documentation. We help them by doing demonstration of the platform to the ethics committee members. And also we conduct special ad hoc meetings needed by the IRB or IEC members to understand the system. In our experience, Olesia, thus far, IRB generally have requested for detailed trial-specific screenshots of the platforms, how the workflow functions, and a demo of platform itself to the key members of the IRBs. The IRBs have also requested for submission of specific statements, confirmations on compliance to the global and region-specific regulations and patient confidentiality, data security, data privacy regulations. Fine. They wanted to ensure that the system is compliant to the regulatory requirements and meeting what it is specified in the regional and national requirements. Our experience also suggests, Olesia, how the IRB is being pursued, this being a new technology, upfront feedback from IRBs is very critical. Fine. Advanced submissions have facilitated efficient review process and approval of the trial to use a digital or e-consenting process.
What we looked at so far, Kishore, is more the theoretical side of e-consent, the emergence of trans-tolerates e-consent guidance document, the potential benefit to patient and other engaged parties. But what is actually happening on the ground in the real world in studies that not involve e-consent?
Yeah, and thank you, Olesia, for this very important question. It's very interesting too, right? The conversion of theory to practice. This is always the major question which comes into the mind of anybody who is thinking of the transition, right? Because it creates some disconnects. But our experience at Consulix so far has been very positive. Right? We implemented e-consent in a community-based COVID zero prevalence survey during the past 18 months. Over 50,000 participants were contacted, screened, enrolled, and completed the consenting process digitally. Fine. This is a very large number to talk about the benefit of e-consenting process. So these deployments very clearly demonstrate the benefits of digital process vis-a-vis the paper-based process. Fine. To measure the benefits, to speak about some of those very specific attributes or metrics, fine. The e-consent was configured in a mobile app in the study of the field volunteers. The field volunteers were trained on the usage of the application and obtaining consent for blood draws for serosurveillance studies. 3 languages were used, an LAR option was provided, multimedia support was provided, offline data entry was provisioned, and several more key features of digital consenting were implemented. Before the data collection started, we did make specific presentations to the IRBs and ethics committees on the security and privacy considerations of the subject, identifying data being collected and how the data was stored, etc. Digitally signed ICFs were shared back with the participants instantaneously on their email IDs. Test reports were shared back with them within 72 hours. We also have very specific information that there is a saving of close to 40% in time when we adopted a digital consenting process vis-a-vis the paper-based method, because some of the previous zero surveys by the same sponsor were done using paper-based methodologies. Fine. And when it comes to the sponsor, they eliminated retrieval of the signed consent form copies, the paper forms, reconciliation work, physical storage of the informed consent forms for long-term storage, which is mandatory in the research setting. Also, Olesia, we have deployed this consenting module in various other multi-site studies too. Along with e-consenting, we have also used modules like remote data collection, including e-questionnaires and televisits, etc. These features have yielded benefits to the patients, site personnel, and to the sponsors alike. Effective trial coordination and real-time data across various roles is the prime outcome of this implementation.
Thank you, Kishore. It's really been a pleasure interviewing you, and it's great to hear the Consul X have adopted eConsent as a key component of Consul X service offerings.
Thank you, Olesia. It has been a pleasure too, talking with you, and I hope the viewers of your TV channel would have gained information about consent and how digitally it can be implemented through our various discussions, what has been going on in this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olesia and Kishore, for this very valuable discussion around eConsent. This is all we have time for today, but please watch out for other hot topics coming up on Across Global TV. Good day to you, wherever you are across the globe.